Spoke about the economy Madani framework, contributors to growth, gear up, and touched on traditional sectors and infrastructure development. In this week's part 2, we shift gears and we'll talk about fiscal reforms and the ringgit. I'm Zahir Kelvinong Abdullah, and this is Money Matters. We are back this week with Second Finance Minister Datuk Seri Amir Hamzah Azizan and Bank Negara Malaysia Governor Datuk Seri Abdul Rasheed Ghaffour. Welcome back to the program, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us back again.
Thank you. Now, Minister, can I ask you this question? With Malaysia undertaking comprehensive fiscal reforms aimed at sustainable economic growth, how is the government balancing the need for public investment while keeping the fiscal deficit in check?
I think it's important to understand that having fiscal discipline is fundamental. It's about creating fiscal space so that the government can actually invest in the right segments of what society actually needs. That's the core role of government. So last year, we tabled to Parliament the Fiscal Responsibility Act. That is to make sure that there's clarity in terms of what are the parameters that the government can operate in and what's the targets in terms of bringing back fiscal balance for the country. So in doing that, what we're doing this year is actually beginning the reform by looking at how we support society and making sure that if we are giving subsidies, we target it in a better form. So when we target in a better form, the people who deserve it get it. Yeah? But those that probably don't require the subsidies, then we remove it from them. That way, we make sure that society is protected, and at the same time, we create fiscal space. By doing these sort of things, it actually helps create the requirement for us to have more funds available to invest in better infrastructure things that the country actually needs. At the same time, by spurring the economy, by creating better investment opportunities, bringing more FDI, DDI, and so on, it creates also new avenues for, first, revenue to grow for the country, in terms of more tax receipts. But second, also sharing where growth can be spurred through a public sector involvement, private sector involvement.
So do you think the fiscal reforms that included the diesel recalibration gave assurances to the government's commitment to narrow the deficit?
I think it was fundamental, because the reality is in the diesel rationalization process that we did, right? Effectively, where we were targeting was to remove leakages of diesel that was going across border. We removed leakages that was going from segments that was not entitled to subsidy, that is buying at retail and selling it to commercial and making profits from the arbitrage that exists there. And that was never the intent of actually providing subsidies. But at the same time, we provided support to public transport, we provided support to logistics sector to make sure that we can contain any inflationary effect that came in along that line. And I think Governor can share with you later that actually our ability to manage inflation has remained well, despite all the reforms that's been going through.
Right. And of course, now tying to that, the ringgit is strengthening, Datuk Seri Governor. So, showing strong signs of recovery of late. So what is driving this and where does the ringgit go from here?
Okay, thank you, Kelvin. I think as mentioned before, ringgit movements in the past have always been driven mainly by the external developments. For example, the aggressive monetary policy and tight monetary policy adopted in the advanced economy, and that has resulted in the high interest rate differential between emerging markets, including Malaysia, and the advanced economy. So that has made the investors' behavior in terms of driving funds towards the advanced economy. But there has been a shift recently, I think, with the shift in monetary policy in the advanced economy, and we have seen the most central bank in the advanced economy has been cutting their rates, including the Fed Reserve recently, and that has shifted in the sentiment of the investors in terms of the flows of funds coming to the emerging countries, including Malaysia, and that is positive for ringgit certainly. And besides that, what's more important to note is in terms of our fundamentals remain strong, and in terms of we have a strong resilient growth, and we have a very strong external sector. We've been enjoying current account surplus of the balance of payments, I think, for the last many decades. And we have a strong financial sector as well. And we have external asset beyond our external liabilities. So these are factors that support ringgit moving forward. And more importantly, we also have tailwinds now in terms of the growth story of Malaysia, in terms of the investment that we are seeing, a robust investment that's coming into the country and going into the high value-added activity and more high-quality kind of investments. And we're also seeing in terms of tourist spending that's increasing, is even higher than, as compared to the pre-pandemic. So these are also tailwinds that are supporting ringgit movements. And all these are positive for the ringgit. But in addition to that, what Minister mentioned just now in terms of fiscal reform, so these are very important. I have to credit the government for the commitment in terms of carrying out this structural reform, including fiscal reform. And so this is where it will provide a very enduring support for the ringgit moving forward. And more importantly, we as Malaysians can play our role as well. For example, spending in the country, buying local products, traveling domestically. So that will also, in a small way, provide further support to the ringgit.
Right. Analysts have also said that the ringgit strength is also due to investor confidence.
Yes, certainly. I think so. That's where I think, as we shared last week, in terms of when we met the investors, they believe in the story that we have shared with them. They believe in the commitment that the government has showed in terms of undertaking structural reforms, and they believe in terms of the kind of, like, I think, results that they are seeing with regard to the investments that's coming into the country, and that has been seen in terms of the flows that we are seeing coming into the financial market as well.
Right. Datuk, last week you mentioned political stability as well. So do you think that this has spilled over into the strengthening of the ringgit because of our political stability?
I think if you look at any normal investor coming into the country, they want stability because it allows them, because their investments are not going to be a short-term investment, they are long-term investments. So they want clarity of policy, they want a government that doesn't change the policies overnight, so on, so that it assures the return mechanism and so on. So clearly, this has helped Malaysia attract more investments into the country. Clearly, it's provided confidence for investments to come in, to put it into longer tiered investment basis. So not just short-term hot money and stuff like that along the way. So clear government stability is fundamental to improving, strengthening of the ringgit.
Okay, gentlemen, hold that thought. We've just got to go for our break. We'll be right back. Stay with us on Money Matters. Welcome back to Money Matters. We're talking to Finance Minister too, Datuk Seri Amir, Hamzah, Azizan, and Bank Negara Governor, BNM Governor, Datuk Seri Abdul Rasheed, Ghaffour. Before we went for the break, the Minister had mentioned that Malaysian importers might be less attractive to buy. So looking at the flip side here, wouldn't a stronger ringgit make Malaysian importers less attractive to buyers?
Right. Okay, let me pick up on what Minister mentioned. I think I like that point in terms of there's always winners and losers. But what's more important is in terms of, we have seen this in the past. This movement has happened in the past. But our businesses are agile and flexible, and they're able to absorb it. Why? Because one reason is because we have this decentralized reserve approach, where the private sector does have their own external assets, and they can always leverage and use on these external assets, particularly the liquid external assets, to meet their commitments. So that's where I think they are agile in terms of managing or absorbing these changes. What's more important is that our role, Negara, is always present in the market, and our presence is to ensure that there's sufficient liquidity in the market, and there's orderly movement in the market, and also in terms of there's effective functioning of the market. So that's very important for the businesses, so that they can conduct business without disruptions.
Now, Datuk, Malaysia's labour market has undergone significant changes in recent years, especially post-pandemic. Can you provide insights into the current state of the labour market, particularly in terms of job creation, wage growth, and like we talked last week as well, the skills gap?
I think if you look at this, the government shared with you last week that we've seen good improvements in the labour market. Unemployment now is down to 3.3%. Yeah, wage rates median is up to about 2,500 or so, as opposed to 2,100 before. And we're seeing tangible job additions coming into the system. That's overall very, very good. But we do need to also do more, and that is a reality. That's why what we've seen the government do is focus about how do we increase wage in the country. We're doing the pilot now in the progressive wage mechanism to signal to the market that you have to reward skills accordingly. As people collect and get better skills, they should be justly rewarded. You see it under the Economy Madani framework, there's the request that the balance between how much organizations keep, how much is returned back to the employees, also rebalancing back that balance. And this year, the government has fulfilled its commitment to actually allow increases in pay for civil servants. Yeah, December 1st will be the first round of going up, and January 2026 you'll see another round. So this is good in order to push it up, but more needs to be done. And you'll see, for example, the Human Resource Ministry has grabbed that and baton and run with it. We're looking at the minimum wage again, and seeing whether we can also use that as a marker to send it out. But through Gear Up, all the GLICs have also committed to act as a signalling to the market, and all the GLICs have committed that they and the companies within their control have committed to embrace living wage, whereby the employment mechanism says that a minimum of 3,001 will be done. And that's important, because like I talked last week, we said, how do we create multiple engines for Malaysia, FDI, DDI? We also have to spur domestic consumption.
Right.
And the more wealth grows in the country, the more evenly that wealth is grown, another strong engine also gets created.
Right. Yeah. So looking at your take on the labour market, I'd like your view on underemployment, because underemployment in Malaysia is a growing problem, especially among graduates, because amidst the emergence of nowadays a flexible gig workforce and the lack of job opportunities in the labour market, do you see this as a problem that needs to be immediately addressed by the government?
I think the government has made a lot of strides, and again, our priority is in terms of high-grading investments that come into the country. How do we bring in better quality industries that create better quality jobs along the way? So the semiconductor area is, for example, one area. If you look at the investments that we are now trying to attract into Malaysia, 2 weeks ago we launched the Johor Special Financial Zone, and actually trying to attract new classes of business into Malaysia. Fund management through the family offices, attracting global service business into Malaysia. Again, talking about high value, white collar jobs that have legs to actually grow and become a center for Malaysia. And I think that's orchestrated into the economy so that we get better things. At the same time, using vehicles that we've got, for example, under Gear Up, PNB is actually committed to work together with their subsidiaries in order to see whether we can better use automation. Automation has two core goals. One is increase efficiency into the system so we get more for what we put in. But second, actually, by increasing automation, we create better jobs. And hopefully better jobs means jobs for locals, as opposed to our dependency today on foreign labor. Malaysia doesn't want to be known as cheap labor place anymore. We want to be high quality, better jobs for our people.
Yeah. Post-pandemic, when we had interviews with a few business analysts as well, they've also said that one of the problems was, of course, getting SMEs, for example, to embrace what you've mentioned, the digital economy. Some of them were sort of dragged in, and they had no choice but to do so. So, looking at this growth, are you happy with this current transition for digital economy?
I think there are different ways of doing it, right? I think government has a role to play, and some of it is what we've done through budgets by giving incentives, so that people who actually embrace conversion to a lot more automation are giving some support to actually get there. Some of it is actually diverting spending into areas whereby investment funds are made available. So, for example, in Sime Darby, for example, the heavier use of automation for the plantation sector has now reduced dependency for foreign labor, but also put in local, because the use of drones, the use of technology monitoring, the use of automated vehicles and so on, create new things along the way. But not just for Sime Darby, but all these are actually created by local industry. So then you create another spur of business that smaller enterprises get to go and support. Then encouraging GLICs to also come in to see if this is viable business, can you support them? Can you put it in? And can you make them from a small business to a medium business? And can you help them then push out to a different form?
Right.
In that sense, we can try to create a much more win-win outcome.
Right. So that's Governor, this question is for you, because with the SMEs embracing the digital economy, of course, there's talk on the digital currency as well that needs to be done. So do you think in terms of our growth, we're on the right track?
Mr. has mentioned in terms of the labour market first if possible. I think the active labour market policy that we are also working on in terms of upskilling and reskilling of the talent, that's also very important. And this will be able to provide adequate supply of skilled talent to ensure we meet the demand of the new investment that's coming in. And this is very important to also increase the productivity. Second, in terms of SMEs, that's very critical, certainly, in terms of automation. And from Banner's perspective, we've also provided some special funds for the SMEs that they can leverage on to develop into automation and digitalization as well. And in terms of the digital currency, if you look at our payment system is very efficient. In fact, I think our payment infrastructure is one of the best. And I think we have seen move to the payment infrastructure, payment systems doubling up post-pandemic. So this is something that's very, very, very encouraging to see. And so this is where I think we may not be as critical for us to move towards the digital currency, because we have an efficient payment system in place already. But having said that, I think we are not prohibiting any growth development. We are not inhibiting any modernization or movement towards this. So that's where we do see, I think, industry does move towards this direction, and we're monitoring this closely and encouraging them to do so.
Okay. Gentlemen, hold that thought. We've just got to go for our final break. Stay with us on Money Matters, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Money Matters. Thank you for staying with us. Now, while we see positive headlines on the overall economy, apparently there's been reports of the man on the street is still struggling with the cost of living issues. Will we see meaningful developments to increase wages for the everyday worker, Datuk Seri?
As I mentioned earlier, right, one of the key things that the government is orchestrating is how do you lift wages in the country. We've seen with Pejabat Awam, the government civil servants, having a push, and we're working on the minimum wage. And also, fundamentally, we are also addressing in terms of how do you reward better skills along the way, which is what progressive wage will do. So I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah? The key is, of course, that the economy must get much stronger. As the economy gets bigger, gets stronger, quality jobs get created, then the trickle-down effect is actually much better and sustainable for the longer term. So I think the government has worked it through and is actually pushing the economy to actually trickle and get it done in a better form. At the same time, we recognize that there may be gaps that exist. Therefore, what you've seen year in and year out, the government's also provided support. Whether you look at it from Sumbangan Tunai Rahmah, you look at it at Sumbangan Asas Rahmah that they put in to help those that may be disadvantaged at this point of time, to lift them up. And creative things like what we're doing Jualan Rahmah, whereby there are support to actually help drive costs down into the system. And I believe that we will continue to do that. And this coming budget, we will give emphasis on that, so that actually helps create better sustainable income for the households.
Okay, Datuk Seri Governor, I'd like your take on this as well, with regards to what the Minister has mentioned on cost of living issues.
All right, sure. I think the concerns on cost of living is real, especially in terms of when it comes to higher food prices. I think we acknowledge that. But we have to look at it from two perspectives. One in terms of the prices, and second in terms of income, as what Minister has mentioned just now. I think in terms of price increases, I think what the government has done is very good in terms of addressing the short-term challenges in terms of cash transfer and also price controls. That has provided some help to the rakyat. But I think the longer term is more important. This is where I think what Minister mentioned just now in terms of the other side of the coin is about income. How do we raise the level of income in the country itself? So that's where bringing in high income, high quality investment is very important. That will create high value added and high income jobs. So that will help in terms of a long way towards increasing the level of income in the country. But all the structural reforms takes time for us to bear fruits. But we have to live on the current short-term measures. But I think over the longer run, as we get positive outcome from the structural reform, so that's where income will go up. And that will be the best solutions to address the cost of living issue.
Okay. Now, to close out, what can everyday Malaysians take away from the broad economic reforms and policies that have taken shape under the Economy Madani framework?
I think it's important to note that Malaysia is transforming, is reforming, and is beginning to gain traction as the primary investment center for the world. Yeah, it is going to be Asia's time at this point in time, and Malaysia plays a big role at that. So for people in Malaysia, we can take some support from that on the basis that better quality jobs, better quality industries create more opportunities in Malaysia. What you should see also in Malaysia is actually growth will lead to better income will lead to better lifestyles in Malaysia. And inshallah, as what we've seen with the ringgit, strengthening ringgit also have positive effects. Yeah, and I don't begrudge that we had a lot of Malaysians who went to enjoy things in Hat Nyai that day, right? And there were comments, why should we allow them out? But it's okay. It's the fruits of labor that's allowed us to enjoy a better quality of life. And the more we do, the more we increase, the more we get stronger, the more we will enjoy the fruits of our labor. So clearly, the government has a plan. Its economy Madani framework has actually anchored that one down. We're seeing trust being built into the economy and into the country. We're seeing foreign investment coming in. We're seeing activation of domestic investments. And we're seeing rebalancing occur, and rebalance also not only from the type of industries and engines that come in, but growth throughout the country. Development's a lot more evenly spread across the country, so everybody gets to enjoy along this line. so nobody gets left behind.
Okay, Governor, your take on this with regards to the reforms and policies?
Exactly. I think this journey in terms of delivering greater prosperity for Malaysians, to me, I think it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a long-term journey. So that's why I think remaining steadfast in terms of what we do, especially in terms of structural reform, is critical, and we'll see the fruits later on. I think what's important is that we can see that I think Malaysia has a strong track record. We are a prolific reformer, and we've seen 6 decades of transformation and reform, and that has helped us to be where we are today. And I think the best time for us to undertake reform is actually now. I think looking in terms of the strong fundamentals that we have, in terms of the strong economic prospect that we have, the contained price pressure that we see right now, low inflation, and so in terms of, I think that's where the environment is quite opportune for us to carry on this structural reform. So I think if we do this and we step fast about this, I'm sure we'll definitely get there.
Okay, thank you for that. Datuk Seri, now, as the government prepares to announce the 2025 budget next week, what key priorities and initiatives should we anticipate?
I think the government's game plan is clear in terms of the economy and monetary framework. It anchors where we want to be. So what the budget will do is actually reinforce against that. Clearly, bringing in more investments into the country, high-grading industries into the country are big-ticket items. So what will the budget do to help that? Secondly, it's also evening out growth within the country and investing more in infrastructure, doing more in terms of strengthening right-yet-facing infrastructure. Transport, hospitals, education are key priorities for the government. And making sure that actually we address issues that exist today, in terms of cost of living pressures, wages in the country, and so on. I think these are key tenets of the budget, so that we look after the future, but also we address what needs are in the current needs.
Right. Final, regarding the budget?
I think we've got a good plan. I think we've got to continue executing the plans that we have. And I think if we remain steadfast in terms of what we do, I'm sure I think we'll be able to get there, and we'll definitely be raising our game.
Datuk Amir, thank you very much, and Datuk Seri Governor, thank you also very much for being on Money Matters. It's been a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So for the past half an hour, you've been with us on Money Matters. If you missed the earlier segment of this program, you can also catch it up on Tonton. I'm Zahir Kelvin Ong Abdullah. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.